Hey guys, we're going to talk about chapter 12, which is infectious diseases. Very important topic, unfortunately, and something that we really need to discuss this semester. Just to start us off, please go look at the PowerPoint before you watch this video. Get, again, accustomed with the terms that we're going to use throughout this chapter, and just to kind of get a better idea of what I'm going to be talking about, as I'm going to skim through some things as your PowerPoint elaborates on them a little bit more. There are terms in here that you really need to know to be successful at understanding the immune system and successful at understanding infectious diseases as a whole. So I'm going to go over some of those terms with you. One of those terms is a pathogen, which is defined as a disease-causing agent that can be passed along from person to person. Now, those pathogens are things that come into our bodies that create bacteria, that create different viruses, things of that nature. You'll find on page 416 that there's a whole list of pathogens, the effects they cause, and the diseases that they also cause. If you're interested in those sorts of things, take a look at that. I'm not going to ask you in depth about those things as we're not in a infectious disease class, but they are important to acknowledge and to know. Pretty interesting in my opinion, but that's just me. Nerdy bit of tidbit. So we do have a cycle of infection. There are different ways that we can get infected with common cold, STI, different things of that nature. So there are 3 phases to this cycle. You have your different modes of transmission and the way that you get them. So the first way is a source of pathogen. There has to be a pathogen available to make you sick. Second way is you have to be susceptible. So maybe you have a cut or you have an open wound on your skin that the pathogen can in that way. Or you touch somebody that sneezed, things of that nature. And the mode of transmission. So there are different modes of transmission that can be different levels, I would say. So blood pathogen, just like a mucus skin pathogen, or a like a saliva pathogen, they're all very different and they're all very varying in levels of acute versus chronic. So check that out. If you have further questions, please let me know about that. I want to spend a little bit of time here talking about the body and the body's defenses to these pathogens and how we become a susceptible host to said pathogens that we just talked about. So the body is a wonderful thing, and it is fascinating to kind of discuss and to talk about. And these are nerdy facts that you can share with your parents or whoever that you deem appropriate. So our body protects us from all these pathogens through our mouth, nostrils, eyelids, our nose, our lungs, our skin, and our genitals. So all of those things protect us from pathogens. So there's a lot of different things on page 418 that you can read about ways that our body protects us. So our nostrils have nose hairs. They get caught in that. So the hairs in your nose and your ears also trap many pathogens, so keeps things from going out. Sneezing also helps with that, or if you get something, I don't know, hung booger-wise, you can get that out by blowing your nose. Cough reflex helps your lungs. Your lungs are expelling whatever's trying to get in, so you're literally coughing out that pathogen. One thing that's very important to acknowledge here is that our lungs have, I'm going to read directly from your book so that way I don't confuse anybody, is that we have hair like Cecilia in our lungs that push particles up and out. And whenever you smoke or you consume cigarettes, marijuana, anything of that nature within your lungs, then it kills off those cells that are pushing the pathogens out, so it causes people to get sick more and increases your risk of infection. So that's why it's also important for lung health and your health overall to not smoke or do those things to your lungs. It's also important for me to talk about the chemical barriers. So our body produces, specifically from your book, page 418, acids, proteins, and enzymes of the digestive tract that can discourage the entry and spread of pathogens. So our stomach enzymes also dispel whatever pathogen it might be, destroy it through the acid, gets rid of it. Fascinating enough, which I did not know until I read this excerpt, is that our tears dispel the outer layer of pathogens, also killing them as well. So tears have a system that kills pathogens. And then genitalia, specifically vaginals, Vaginas secrete different acids as well that can promote the growth of different modes, pathogens that are healthy for us, and they also dispel those pathogens. So that could be the acid that you're seeing come out, coating of certain bacteria. So the vaginal secretions produce the slightly acidic environment that inhibits and also dispels different pathogens from entering the body. So that's how the body protects us. We are a well-oiled machine. So when you get sick, you have worn down your immune system. You either had a cut, abrasion, something wasn't functioning right. But otherwise, that's why we stay remotely healthy throughout your life, hopefully anyways, is because our body is doing its job, which is fascinating in itself. We have all of these different mechanisms that protect us from getting sick and keep that pathogen out. So, in talking about the immune system, it's very important to kind of address different points of our immune system. I have this laid out in detail on the PowerPoint, but I'm just going to hit a few main pieces that I want you to acknowledge within this video. So, antigens are the things that are going to be recognized as foreign, and they're going to trigger that immune response. So, the antigens come into the body through bacteria, through virus, whatever that may be. And then things such as antibodies, which are specialized microorganisms, bind to a pathogen specific for the antigen and help mark it for destruction. So the antibodies are like the little police running around in your body, marking everything that is antigen or foreign for it to be vacated. So that's how antibodies work. I also think it's important to note that people don't understand why we get fevers and why our body runs fevers. So our body is producing an environment that is not hospitable, and that's why it's creating a fever for the pathogen or the antigen to leave quicker or to die, which again is why the body's increasing the temperature to try and make it leave that environment. That's about all I'm going to say for the immune system. You can check out the lymphatic system, lymph nodes, tonsils, and different areas of that nature, but I'm really not going to ask you a whole lot about the lymphatic system as we're really not in biology or anything of that nature. So the role of immunizations, vaccines, that's another hot topic within today's time. So vaccines are actually the killed, weakened, or incomplete pathogens from whatever you're getting vaccinated for. So flu vaccination is just a weakened, killed, or incomplete pathogen of the flu that they're injecting to you. And the way that that works is you're exposing the body to that foreign trigger for it to be better prepared whenever it enters the next time. So the system responds by producing those antibodies that it needs to kill it off. Whether you agree with vaccination or not, that's how that works. I always recommend people get vaccinated, but you can't force people to. And I encourage you to make a decision that's best for you and your health. There are three different types of infection. You have acute infection, chronic infection, and latent infection. Acute infection is things like the cold, flu. They don't last for very long. We feel like they last forever, I understand, but again, they don't last very long. You have chronic infection, which typically means that you're not going to get rid of it. It persists over a long period of time, if not your whole lifetime. So that would be something like AIDS. And then a latent infection is a pathogen that lies dormant, and this would be chickenpox with shingles. We have the chickenpox vaccination, but that typically means that the shingles pathogen is within our bodies, and that's a latent infection that could pop up, or it couldn't. It just depends. So again, examples of acute infection would be sinus infection, a cold, or flu. A chronic infection would be something like AIDS, and then a latent infection would be like mono or chickenpox or shingles. All those are different types of infections. As you see on page 421, there are different strategies to help you not get sick. So covering your mouth and nose with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. I also recommend you use your arm and then maybe wipe it off, but do not use your hand. So please, people, do not use your hand to cover your mouth, your nose, and then stick your hand out to shake somebody's hand. Reach for the doorknob. You touch everything with your hands. So please use a tissue, please use your arm, and think about other people whenever you're doing that. Also, wash your hands as often as you can. Every time you leave the bathroom, wash your hands. If you have hand sanitizer, use that in between washing your hands, but please don't use it as a replacement. Washing your hands can definitely save lives for sure. And then moving forward, antibiotics. The one thing I want to talk about with antibiotics, and you can read in here, page 422, about what antibiotics to do, is just a newsflash alert for all the ladies and the men out there. Women, if you're taking a pill birth control, the antibiotics will counteract with your birth control, making you susceptible to getting pregnant. So if you take an antibiotic at the same time or during the period that you take your birth control pills will counteract with your antibiotic, again, making you susceptible to being pregnant. So if you are sick and you are taking antibiotics and you are having sex, make sure that you are doing so appropriately, using protection and using other methods other than relying on that birth control. You can also forego the antibiotics and say, no, I don't want the antibiotics, please give me another option. If you can have that option, if not, then obviously just be aware that that is what happens whenever you take antibiotics and adjust accordingly. But I always feel that's very important for people to know and to acknowledge before making different decisions. To segue into your sexually transmitted infections and diseases, so infections you can get rid of primarily through person-to-person sexual contact, and disease is something you can't get rid of. So they are two completely different things. You see on page 428 the STIs in the United States, just a snapshot, and that is a snapshot from, I do believe, 2013. So that is not even an up-to-date snapshot. Women are more likely to get an STI than men and have more serious complications than men. And you can see that the most common sexually transmitted infection is the human papillomavirus, which is HPV. About 14 million cases annually, close to 30% of young women acquire HPV from their first male sex partner. So that's a pretty high statistic. Check that out on your PowerPoint. I'm not going to go through all of the STIs. You can get a pretty good sense on your PowerPoint of what the STIs look like and what you do to prevent them. And that is really all I have for your infectious disease chapter. Please be on the lookout for your stress management chapter.